Hello and welcome to Chapter 8 in Biopsychology, where we are going to be talking about the biopsychology of movement. And so let's take a look at the slideshow here. We start off here with one of my favorite shows when I was growing up was The $6 Million Man. Steve Austin was the character in this particular show, and Steve was a test pilot, was involved in a pretty severe accident. He lost both of his legs, one arm, and an eye. But they had the technology and they had this willing person to do it, and they created bionic legs and a bionic arm and a bionic eye, and he went on to become sort of a super secret agent or whatnot, and it brought to life actually a novel that I had read actually called Cyborg. So the $6 Million Man is actually based on a novel called Cyborg by Martin Caidin, and it introduced to popular culture the notion of having a mechanical part, like a cyborg was an individual who was partly human, partly machine. And so you had this, not only did you have a replacement arm, but it had super strength. He could run like 60 miles an hour. He had a telescopic lens in his eye. That was a little departure from the actual book. The book, it was a camera. He didn't see through it. Kind of realizing we're not quite that advanced yet. Having a bionic arm is way less advanced than having a bionic eye. But nonetheless, Steve Austin went and, saved many people and solved the problems of the world using his artificial limbs. This is not far from our reality right now. This is a video of this particular gentleman that was taken in 2018. And let's take a look at what happened with him.
This is Johnny Matheny. He used to deliver bread. Now, he's about to become a cyborg.
Now here's where I'll need help.
Johnny lost his arm in 2005 to cancer. Today, he's becoming the first person to live with an advanced, mind-controlled, robotic arm.
I want to get my life back as it was before I lost my arm, or as close to as I can get.
He's a little excited.
Santa said Johnny was going to get something special this year for Christmas.
Put on some pounds, huh?
Yeah. Yes. Come on in.
For the last 4 years, Johnny and a few dozen other men and women have been testing versions of the MPL at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab in Maryland. But today is different. Researchers are delivering the arm to him to keep for a year and do pretty much whatever he wants with it. It's part of a 10-year-long research project funded by the U.S. Defense Department to create a prosthetic that could replace the human hand and arm.
This is the first time the MPL is being left with someone for actual out of the lab use. So after 3 days, we get out of Dodge and let Johnny use it the way he wants to use it.
I am going out of my head. Yes.
He's the kind of pioneer of this take-home, which is the essential next step in kind of getting approval, getting it out to be a functional device.
The MPL has 26 joints. 17 of them can be moved independent of each other. And over the years, Johnny has gotten really good at using it. Watch this. And remember, he's doing this just by thinking. Johnny's moving each finger individually in order. This is something that no one else can do.
Ta-da!
In the next year, he's going to be pushing the arm to its limits, and he'll be checking in with the team at Johns Hopkins with reports. They're going to use the data that he collects to make improvements to the arm and also document what it can do that other prosthetics can't. And Johnny has big plans, too.
Before the year's up, I plan on playing the piano. Never played a piano in my life. It might be one song, but I'm gonna play a piano.
Gotta have it, they say.
Hey everyone, we're going to be following Johnny for the next year as he lives with his new arm, and we'll be uploading videos as he progresses with it, so stay tuned.
And there we have it. The Bionic Man of today. I have to tell you that part of the video when he goes like this, when I first saw the video, I thought he was doing something else. So, but anyway, here we have this guy. You could actually look up those videos and they're tracking his progress on YouTube. That's from 2018. There's another video that's come out where he's playing the piano. He's not, doing the old Elton John thing, but he is playing out the chords. But it's interesting how they talk about that technology still advancing. He had a problem with one of the fingers that wasn't reacting correctly, and lots of problem solving around this. But as technology becomes better and better, we're able to do this. Now, the reason I start off this chapter with a question about bionics is because it's through our understanding of the nervous system and how the brain and spinal cord tells our muscles what to do. It's through that understanding that we're able to develop technology that imitates that. The whole deal with this guy is they want him to be able to think, I'm going to move my arm, and it moves the same way I do. It reacts to the willful suggestions of my mind that send. Now, with this gentleman, all the nervous structure is in place all the way up to the stub of his amputated arm. Then there's an interface, a human-machine interface that translates that same neurological activity to the robotic mechanisms of the arm. And it's through that understanding of that neurology that really this kind of thing, and that's really kind of where the rubber meets the road on this sort of thing. Now, as we start looking at movement, let's start off with one of the most important aspects of movement, and that is the muscles that are involved. Because movement has a dependence on the reaction of particular kinds of muscles in our body. So we have skeletal muscles. These are probably the ones that we're most familiar with. They're the ones that are controlling my jaw as I talk right now. They're the ones that keep me upright. They're the ones that help me walk, lift weights, and perform amazing athletic activities the way I do. Now, that's often these skeletal muscles are under our willful control. Not always. Sometimes we have reactions or we have reflexes that also stimulate our skeletal muscles. Smooth muscles are those that are involved usually in our digestive system, and they have particular kinds of flowing movements, such as peristalsis, such as you're moving through food through your intestines. That movement is created by smooth muscles around your intestines. And then finally, a third one, cardiac muscles, which in themselves have a movement characteristics associated with them. Cardiac tissue beats. It syncs with other cells around it, and they beat. They actually contract, and that auto contraction process is then put under autonomic control through the autonomic nervous system in order to manage our heartbeat and to regulate the increase and decrease of our heart rate as a result of the body's needs. Now, I want to show you this. That what you're looking at here, it's the first frame in this movie. This is a short little film that shows cardiac tissue actually beating. So it's not beating because of neurology, it's beating because it's a nature of the cells themselves. This is cardiac tissue in a petri dish of sorts. And you will see that it's beating. A little creepy, but that's what we got. So that's great. So we have this tissue around our bodies, the muscles, the different kinds of muscles, and our autonomic nervous system or our willful movement system, the motor cortex, sends messages down through the motor pathway, through our spinal cord, out to those muscles, and then sensory neurons that we've already talked about bring that information back to the brain in order to check and balance where my arm is. So I have perception neurons that are telling me where my arm is. Even if my eyes are closed, I get a sense of where my arm is because of the sensory neurons that are associated with the muscles and my skin and whatnot. And I'm sending information to my muscles in my shoulder and in my arm to move my hand this way at the same time. So a back and forth feedback information system between our brain, spinal cord, and our muscle movements. Now, the motor neuron is actually, to tell you the truth, it's the one that looks the most like our standard neuron looks. So we have, of course, you see all the parts here, the cell body, the axons. You see they've even drawn the myelin sheath on there. And then you see the junctures at which where the neuron attach themselves to the muscles and send signals through neurotransmitters into those cells to contract. Now there's two kinds of contraction fibers. One of them are fat twitch fibers, and these are aerobic. These are for very, very minute, very precise movements, such as in our heart, in our diaphragm, in those kind of things, but also within our regular straight muscles that we have in our bodies. And then there are slow twitch fibers, which are anaerobic. Now, the interesting thing is fast twitch fibers actively use up oxygen that we are taking in while these muscles are going. So these muscles do not fatigue. Slow twitch fibers, such as the ones we use when we're running, we're lifting weights, participating in sports, are actually anaerobic, and they are using up the stores of oxygen and other, our carbohydrates and sugars that are inside of those cells, using them up as energy. So those particular cells actually do become fatigued, whereas our fast twitch fibers do not become fatigued. Now this is of course a vital difference, because it's not like we want to have a long day and our heart's just tired and needs to stop for a while. That would not be good. Same with our breathing, same with our blinking our eyelids, or some of our, fast reactions such as, don't you hate it when you're trying to say something like this in a video and you just can't get it? Our reflexes, there it is, our reflexes are still in place, those kinds of things. Those aspects of our muscles do not tire, and that's a good thing. But we do experience fatigue in the using up. Those particular muscle cells use up the energy stores and have to be restored after. So let's talk now about that nervous system, that connection between the brain, the spinal cord, and the muscles in our body, the motor pathway. And you see this graphic sort of talks about all the different areas in the brain that are going to be involved in this little dialogue here. First, we have the brain stem here down at the bottom here, where you see ventromedial and dorsolateral tract. Right in that area, we have the brain stem, which is responsible for breathing, heart, and digestion, keeping our system going, whether we are actually aware of it or not. The next we have, in terms of understanding how things get communicated from the brain down to the rest of the body, we have the dorsolateral tract right here. And dorsal meaning like a dorsal fin. It goes up the back, and it's lateral. And the dorsolateral tract takes information from the body to the somatosensory and motor cortices, following up that green colored area into the motor and sensory cortex. And then we have the ventral medial tract, information from the somatosensory and motor cortices to the body. So this is information going out. The dorsolateral tract is information coming in. Up here we have the primary somatosensory cortex, and this is the primary place where information from our sensation system comes in, from all of the senses. And then we have our premotor cortex. This is information goes in there preliminarily to get the good judgment as to how things are going on. We have the primary cortex, motor cortex, to process all of our movements, and then the basal ganglia, which has been very much implicated in the creation of voluntary movements and then habitual movements. Now, notice this is in the deeper part of the brain. This is in that, the arrow goes down into that kind of blue shaded area. Now, this is a deeper part of the brain, and when we have sayings such as, you don't forget how to ride a bike, it's because this information is being stored in your basal ganglia. Once you learn how to walk, you got it. You don't have to get up every day and got to learn to walk again today. Now, notwithstanding a person who has had to do that because of some accident, but thankfully we don't have to relearn all of those activities. They come really, really automatic. And we learn how to type, we learn how to drive, we learn how to write, play instruments, all of these things. And the more we do those, the more the controlling of those mechanisms actually moves from the motor cortex into patterns of movement in the basal ganglia. So when you're learning a scale on a guitar and you're learning the finger motions and the combination of right hand and left hand technique in order to make that happen, it's really rough because the brain is actively coordinating all of these activities together. Now, the reason why guitar teachers will tell you to keep on practicing your scales is because eventually it'd be really cool if they were just automatic. If you had in your head F sharp major, you could just do an F sharp major right across the neck on your guitar and it would be right there. That's a lot of basal ganglia getting involved, where the actual patterns associated with that are encoded in the basal ganglia. We still have that control, but it's almost like we have a program. We're going to, rather than sitting there going through the steps, we have here's the F sharp major program, stick it in the computer and it just runs. So those kind of standard programs, or things that we call habits every day, become stored in the basal ganglia. Now, I say habit, and we look at other parts of psychology, habitual things like drugs, habitual things like smoking, habitual things like not exercising, and all of those things. And then the positive things where we say, well, if you have to establish a routine in order to eat better, in order to sleep better, in order to exercise better, and all these, the basal ganglia is involved in all of that. So there are treatments for substance use disorder that are focusing on the basal ganglia. And when we're trying to develop a habit, by marking on the fridge every time we go exercising until it becomes automatic, the basal ganglia is implicated as well. So really, really very important part of the brain in many areas of psychology. Now, we go down here to another part of the brain, the cerebellum. It's almost perceived as like a mini brain, even in its physical structure. It is very much having to do with motor coordination, sports, dancing, and here too we see some implications for drug abuse and alcohol. Now, the basal ganglia, which has these programs, works in coordination with the cerebellum in order to enhance our ability to have flowing movement. As I'm recording this, we are anxiously awaiting the start of the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo, and we're going to be seeing some of the most elegant body movements that you can ever see in gymnastics and swimming and all of the sports and the skateboarding, and just like the ability that individuals have to make it look effortless is really a combination of very ingrained motor movement programs in the basal ganglia, and then the activity of this kind of mini brain that we have in the cerebellum that kind of brings it all together into coordinated movement. In order to activate and get into that place, you'll see that many athletes and individuals who excel at many things have to get into the zone. So essentially, the concentration required in order to engage these automatic patterns is to clear one's mind. You don't want the motor cortex second guessing what a person is doing. You're just like, do the thing that you've always done. And it's sort of a clearing of the mind. And many athletes, many dancers, musicians will talk about that sort of other almost out of mind, out of body experience they get when they can enact that flow, enact that zone that they can get into where the basal ganglia and the cerebellum can do their job without the interference of the conscious efforts of the motor cortex. So that is our chapter 8. I hope, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get to the assessments yet. Let's talk about those. We have a discussion on habits and looking at the things that are programmed into your basal ganglia. And let's have a look at that. And there's a quiz, and it's basically kind of asking to review the information related to exercise and why certain muscles become fatigued after we've been using them for a while. So now that's it. That's chapter 8. So hope this has been helpful, and enjoy the chapter and have a great day.